It's week 14 in the NFL, and we've got fantasy questions such as playoffs.
Playoffs?
If Mike Pettin has the stones to start Johnny Manziel, shouldn't you too?
And is a slightly less hirsute Ryan Fitzpatrick the sleeper for your fantasy dreams?
These questions and more answered in this week's Fantasy War Room live to tape.
Who you calling a psycho?
Can't help but notice there's a bottle of white wine sitting next to you, Nick.
And it's not to celebrate 3 of my 4 teams making it into the playoffs either.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you very much.
Last week, I believe it was a Jordy Nelson-related bet. It wasn't even a bet. It was a gauntlet that you threw down when I said, if Jordy Nelson scores a touchdown, it will be from farther than 25 yards out.
And then I said, there's no way the Patriots will possibly let Jordy Nelson beat them. There's no way he'll score a touchdown of 25 yards or longer. If so, I will come on the show next week and drink. I didn't just say white wine. I said I will drink a lot of white wine. So here it is, everybody. The manliest thing I could possibly imagine doing. It pairs well with humble pie. A 12-ounce glass, usually reserved for post-show beers. Awesome Sauvignon Blanc.
Hey, I won't make you drink alone here, so pass the bottle. I'll
yeah.
do a little bit of that.
Pass the.
This is quality radio too. If people are just listening to the show,
I think this makes for great TV, and also it shows the sort of the teamwork right here. I think what's the corporate word? Synergy.
Synergy, or esprit de corps.
Right.
Esprit de corps.
I think synergy was firstborn of men losing bets and drinking white wine. So cheers to that, and cheers to
fantasy playoff time.
Playoffs.
Playoffs.
Now I think the question, everyone.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
That's drinkable.
Yeah.
That'll do. The question on everyone's mind is, of course, that first guy, the stormtrooper without the helmet that you see pop up in the desert scene, is he a good guy or a bad guy, and where's he going?
And also, there's been a lot of semantics about lightsaber design, and should lightsabers have hilts, laser hilts?
A guard, if you will.
Yes.
Oh, should it?
I don't. I think that you. I don't know.
The first person that ever says that in earnest in front of my face.
My response to them would be, "It looks cool."
That's so funny, because my response would be, get away. Can you really actually have a guard, like a hilt on I've never seen that before, and leave it to J.J. Abrams to completely have to put his stamp and reinvent part of the universe? It's a movie. It's play. Also,
this was, first of all, it was a long, long time ago, and we're moving forward in time. There's been advancements in lightsaber design.
Obviously. So now it's not. Now it's like a sort of long time ago.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You are totally allowed to say "bazinga" right before you punch that person in the face if they open up a lightsaber debate. Just saying.
Good time. Shall we talk about fantasy football since the playoffs are starting?
Yes. Why not? Congratulations to all of you that are watching. It'd be weird if you were. Thanks for watching. If you didn't make the playoffs, you're really.
You know what? There's a lot of consolation brackets. A lot of leagues have consolation brackets.
Do you try?
I try every week, whether I'm even if I'm eliminated and I don't have a game, I still set my lineup. That's the dedication that you get from fantasy football, quote unquote, expert Matt Ufford.
Well, there are 2 fun ways to go, I think, if you're in the consolation bracket in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. One is to sort of try as hard as you can, and then, of course, be the troll on the boards. It's like, see, I scored more points than all you guys. I could have beaten everyone. Of course, I was 3rd in points, but 1st in points scored against. Sorry, okay, what? I can't hear you from up here where we're still playing football. I mean, pretend football that Matt, what? Or 2, one year for fun, I did a roster flush. And I dared people, and I flushed my players, and then I just picked up players off waivers just to see if I could beat people in the playoffs, and I did.
Wow.
Yeah, and then people were mad at me because then I sent actually talented players out into the waiver pool. No one picked them up though. That was the deal. It's kind of a fun little game.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
In one of my leagues, or not one of my leagues, but a thing that I've heard about is that the teams that don't make the playoffs, whoever wins the losers bracket gets the first overall pick the next year.
In one of my leagues, the person who finishes dead last in the regular season, so as to make you not even like punt on the season when it's like week 10, week 11, we make them pay double entry fee the next year. Call it a death tax.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's mean.
It is, right?
Wow.
But that's going to make you try in weeks 12 and 13. But when you're like 2 and 9, you're like, well, I'm done with that. We're on to hockey.
That's hardcore.
Still in it to win it.
Man.
Kind of like drinking wine on a fantasy show.
Speaking of which, let's talk about quarterback rankings. Let's get into it this week. Get down and dirty. Number 1 is an easy one. Aaron Rodgers at home versus the Falcons and their awful, no good defense. Aaron Rodgers has 20 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in Green Bay this season.
This is not likely to be the week that he throws that first interception because they suit the starting cornerbacks for Atlanta now that I think Desmond Trufant is hurt and may not be playing.
At least limited.
At least limited. The starting cornerbacks for Atlanta this week are Warm Body and Viable Person. You know where they both came from? The street.
Street free agents. Number 2, Peyton Manning. Actually, a very tough game. He's going to be at home in Denver, but Buffalo's one of the better, actually the best pass rush in the NFL. 64 sacks this season, 60 sacks this season, a lot of sacks. They're leading the NFL in sacks.
And Miami gave him a great game too, but at the end of the day, it was like, whoa, boy, I thought Miami played him much tougher than they did, and yet he put up 369 in a 4 spot. So
Peyton Manning still getting it done. Buffalo, of course, down Leotis McKelvin, so could be an interesting day, and C.J. Anderson taking a much bigger role for the Broncos in the running game. So I might knock Manning down just a tiny peg, but
they're not going to be able to run against Buffalo, though. This new sort of like offensive lineman playing a tight end role that they're kind of mimicking from the Patriots, that's not going to work against Buffalo because that is a feisty front seven.
Yes. Mean.
Do we
Road graders.
Do we know what CJ stands for yet?
Carl Jr.
Delicious.
Number 3, Drew Brees. He's at home versus a dog caca defense. The Panthers.
I've not heard anyone call it dog caca in so long. That just for some reason, just like all of a sudden now, like this image of like one of us, like a dad, just standing there picking it up, and then like the dad is holding onto the leash. The dog has just defecated on the sidewalk. He's also trying to make sure his kid doesn't run into the street, and he's also trying to use that third invisible dad arm to pick up the poop, and the kid's just there like, oh, caca.
And you're like, yeah, it's the Panthers defense. Drew Brees is a great play despite the recent swoon at home. That we're not going to see that again. With the Panthers are going to cure those woes.
Oh, sure, and plus he put up a 5 spot on Pittsburgh last weekend in Pittsburgh.
Looked really good doing it. Number 4, Andrew Luck gets it done every single week. He's at Cleveland. That's despite Cleveland's got a pretty solid defense, but Andrew Luck will not be denied.
Inconsistent this year, though. Yeah.
Number 5, Romo. He's at Chicago. I like the play, the Bears defense.
Speaking of, actually, on tonight's episode of Choose Your Dog Caca, you could talk about Tony Romo and that awful game that he posted on Thanksgiving, the Bears defense in general, their effort against Detroit. Romo, we were talking before the show, Romo does have his normal rest. It's offset, or at least unusually set.
He's had a week since Thanksgiving, after he played on less than 4 days rest.
That was brutal.
Yeah. Number 6, Tom Brady at San Diego. Patriots already in California. Flew out there direct from Wisconsin, I think, right?
Yeah, they took the, you just take the Appleton to San Diego Express.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Charter Airlines. And they made it in town just to go to a Clippers game.
Yeah, I am avoiding the Patriots at all costs this week just because they've got that Bieber stink all over them.
Don't even. Don't even.
Yeah.
Where was Patriots PR? No. Where you have all this amnesty building up in your behalf because everyone's like, you guys gave good job, good effort after the game against Green Bay, and then you let a bunch of them into with Bieber, and he's doing that thing with the hat. Oh God, talk about somebody I will never drink white wine with.
on many levels. Number 7. Number 7, Phillip Rivers. He looked fantastic at Baltimore. He is able to handle pressure in the pocket, I think probably as well or better than any other quarterback in the league.
He gets sacked a lot and he takes some big hits, but he's a big guy.
He's able to deliver a very accurate pass while he's getting mauled. Very like Roethlisberger-esque. Like Roethlisberger will have 3 guys on him and like shake one of them off and throw like a pass 60 yards downfield. Rivers will just have that guy like within like 1 inch of his face and he'll deliver a perfectly accurate pass.
It's the only time that really awkward release of his seems to work in his favor because he can just sort of just like flick it.
Yeah.
And also, we should say, and we can talk about this more when we get to receivers, but the reawakening, resurgence, re-goodness of Keenan Allen is kind of factored into it, too.
Yeah. Rounding out the top 10, Russell Wilson got a tough game at Philly. Ryan Tannehill versus Baltimore. Baltimore, really interesting defense because they've got a really mean, tough front 7, but a garbage secondary. So if you can handle the pressure or sidestep the pressure, you're going to have open receivers downfield. Roethlisberger at Cincinnati. 2 late touchdowns in the final 2 minutes and 34 seconds, plus 2-point conversions to save his fantasy worth last weekend.
I kind of also think that Roethlisberger, people will be down on him. So, like, his worth was saved, like you said. He saved his bacon. But just because this is the way the NFL has gone this year, something is telling me, like, oh, well, I should sit Roethlisberger. He's going into Cincy. They got a good defense. Since he's in first place, he looked like Kaka last week. Like, this is the NFL 2014. Of course, this is the week he's going to go in there and have his best game ever, just because.
I think that if there are 2 teams that I'm less certain of on a week-to-week basis, I'm not sure that any two teams can be more unpredictable than the Bengals and Steelers.
Nope.
I have no idea who's showing up any given week with those 2 teams.
They deserve each other this week.
They really do. And the only thing I'm concerned about is whether I start Roethlisberger in that league that I have him in.
Oh, I want to know what your alternative is.
I think it's Phillip Rivers, actually.
No, I'd start Rivers. Even with the Patriots being so tough in the red zone. Look at the yards.
Yeah, I'd take Rivers
had
at
a
home.
lot of yards. He's going to get a lot of yards, too.
Yep. And then rounding out the top 15, we've got Matt Stafford versus the Bucks. Mark Sanchez against the Seattle defense, number 1 pass defense, number 2 pass defense in the NFL. Very, very hot and healthy secondary. Ryan Fitzpatrick at Jacksonville, Andy Dalton versus Pittsburgh, and Eli Manning, a curious play at Tennessee between 2 teams that are hot garbage. I think he's a good play, though. I actually like Manning this week very much.
Oh, don't make no mistake that the New York Giants now, the quality of football they're playing is like. Have you ever gone to a party and like the host like sends you home with leftovers, and you then leave the leftovers, like it's Friday night, and then you don't go anywhere for the weekend, and like you get in the car Monday, and the leftovers have been in the car the whole weekend?
Yes.
That's what the New York Giants are playing like right now. 3-day car-baked leftovers. Just awful, hideous stank. But Tennessee,
even worse.
6 touchdowns. They let Ryan Fitzpatrick throw.
I like Manning a lot this week. My question, I have no idea what to expect out of Mark Sanchez versus Seattle. So Sanchez has played really well since he's taken over the starting job, but he's still prone to make mistakes, still throwing 1 to 2 interceptions.
He's averaging a pick and a half a game.
So, and I don't know if the Seahawks are going to be able to put the pressure on him to make him old, crappy Mark Sanchez, or if the Chip Kelly offense is so good that he's still going to have an effective day. I don't think that I'd want to start Sanchez, but I'm very curious to see what happens for selfish reasons. Of course.
If there's ever a time not to take huge chances, it's the playoffs, because you got to stick with the team that got you there, and you got to dance with the girl you brought, which is exactly why old Hunchin Gutterson over here is going to tell you a move he made in his fantasy league. And if I'm telling you that I made it, you definitely should not. I have Mark Sanchez as my quarterback. I had Foles, dropped him, picked up Sanchez. Placed a waiver claim on Mr. John Football. And I am ready to start him.
I would too.
If he starts, I am 100%. It's going to take time before he matures into whatever his final finished NFL product is, but he can play.
Yeah, he can play. And here's why. Here's why there's 2 reasons why I'm backing Manziel if he starts. Number 1, he's going to give you the extra running component. So, boom, he gets you 50, 60, 70 yards on the ground. That's a free 5 to 7 points right there. And then the other thing is The Browns are at home hosting a Colts team that just allowed 320, 60, 70 yards and 3 touchdowns to a bad team's third-string quarterback.
Yeah, to a puppet that who just got cut, removed from his strings.
So I am right with you on Johnny Manziel. Play him if you can get him. Let's move on to running backs. And really interesting week this week with because you've got a lot of the guys at the top of the pile. Number 1 versus number 2, Matt Forte and DeMarco Murray facing off in the same game. And
I think Matt Forte is going to go off this week. I think this is going to be a huge one.
And then 2 guys, the next 2 on the list are Marshawn Lynch and LaShawn McCoy, also facing off in the same game, but against much tougher defenses. The Philadelphia front 7 and the Seahawks are much better defenses than you're going to be seeing with Matt Forte and DeMarco Murray.
I feel like they're going to have to lean. I think they're going to lean on Lynch a lot in this game. I think he'll definitely score. This, like we were talking before the show, this may be the week that he coughs one up, or that it maybe gets picked up, because that's a very opportunistic defense. That Philadelphia. If you had to pick an adjective to describe the Philadelphia defense, wouldn't opportunistic probably be the first one that comes to mind?
Absolutely.
I think Forte may. This could be the week where he single-handedly wins some people some games.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Just because his skill set and his ability to play the whole field might work out beautifully for them. McCoy, I put it for because, I know like you can still run a little more in Seattle than you could. So where do I set my expectations? He looks better. And I could see them trying to get him out in space this week.
And
frustrate that Seattle secondary.
The Seahawks have a ton of speed at linebacker. Since Bobby Wagner's returned, that's gone hand in hand with their resurgence as defense, allowing 368 yards and just 2 field goals over the last 2 weeks. That was largely the result of frustrating quarterbacks, passing games. And they can still, if you go between the tackles, where of course they're missing Brandon Mebane. I think that LaShawn McCoy might, because of the way that the zone blocking works for the Eagles, I think that McCoy might have a decent day. Now again, Seahawks are a very good defense. It's going to be tough to score on them in the red zone, and you never know when Darren Sproles comes in to siphon a touchdown away from Shady. But I don't think that it's as dark and gloomy a scenario for LaShawn McCoy as you might be afraid of.
Right. I could very well see, though, if any team in the NFL is going to trust their back 4 and just say, guys, you ain't getting any extra safety help and no one's dropping into coverage. We're going to stack the box and we're going to make sure that this game is Sanchez versus our secondary. I'm, Wesley Snipes, always bet on Seattle.
Well,
Remember that line from Passenger 57?
I do. I don't remember it quite that way.
Always bet on Seattle.
Oh. I take that very, very nicely. Jamal Charles with a tough matchup at Arizona. They hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher all year until Steven Jackson mysteriously broke for 100.
He looked like he was wearing a fat suit.
Yeah, I don't know.
He got really, I know he's all muscle, but he got weirdly big.
I think he's always been that big.
He's been big, but he got real big.
Anyway.
Anyway, surprise first person to put up 100 yards on them, but Jamal Charles, we've seen time and again, too good not to put in the top 5.
Here's the thing. With outside the top 5, there's a bunch of matchups that I actually like better. I don't think there's any argument with those 5 running backs being the best 5 running backs in the NFL, but the matchups after that, Eddie Lacy versus Atlanta. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. A competent running back against the Falcons, yes, very much. Especially one that could be as out of hand, where the Packers are just trying to run off the clock for the final quarter. Yeah, absolutely. C.J. Anderson, leading the NFL in rushing yards for the last 4 weeks, and yards from scrimmage over the last 4 weeks since he's been playing. 649 yards over the month.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And for the person who spent the rest of, whoever had any waiver wire budget left to spend on him, when his name came up in the Broncos wide receiver slot machine a few weeks ago. Broncos running back slot machine. Good on you.
And then Trey Mason at Washington. No. Washington is actually pretty good at containing rushers, but he's been averaging 20 touches per game over the last 3 to 4 weeks, last 5 weeks. He's been getting 20 touches a game, and that's great. How many running backs actually get 20 touches every single week?
Last week he went off for 14 carries for 119 yards, and one of them was an 89-yarder.
Yeah, he had 17 touches, 164 yards, 3 touchdowns.
So it's over 5 yards. Even if one is an 89, at the end of the day, it's still over 5 yards in the touchdown. That's great.
And then mysteriously, all the way down at number 9, we've got Arian Foster at Jacksonville.
Probably should have been a little higher.
That's all right. All right, and then Mark Ingram versus Carolina. That's he's been kind of hit or miss maybe the last week or two.
Buck 23 last week. He had 120 yards, 119 yards, I believe, on 30 carries in the first game against Carolina, which was a Thursday nighter that the Saints won 28-10.
Yeah.
The Carolina Panthers have the worst rush defense in the NFL all night long.
Yeah, I'll take Mark Ingram. And then all the way down at 11, Le'Veon Bell. A tough game at Cincinnati, but he has been just a yardage monster. 204 yards for rushing yards 2 weeks ago, and then 250 yards from scrimmage. Caught 8 of 11 targets last week. He is on pace for 2,200 yards from scrimmage this year. He's just
a lot.
Not really getting in the end zone the way you might like him to, but just getting those reliable points every single week. I like that.
We'll see what kind of defense Cincinnati plays against him. I don't know. That was the Saints.
Sure.
It was home. That was the Saints.
Let's go 12 through 15. Joik Bell, Isaiah Crowell, Gio Bernard, Dan Herron. Love the work that he's done on community. Also has run the ball so much better than Trent Richardson.
Like last week, his one rush for his one long touchdown
49-yard touchdown run.
Do you know that was more yards rushing than I think Trent Richardson has had in any game since he became a member of the Colts?
That one touchdown run is longer than Richardson's longest career run. Richardson's longest run for his career, he's never topped 40 yards.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
This kid does fumble though. He's got grease whistles for fingers, so I'd be very leery of him putting another one on the ground.
Justin Forsett, 1,000 yards rushing on the season, the third or fourth ranked rusher in the NFL, all the way down at 16. A tough Miami defense in Miami.
A Miami defense that yielded over 200 yards rushing to the Jets in the first half last night, and yet somehow still won the game.
Yeah, so maybe I think we can probably bump up Forsett a little bit if we're being realistic.
Yeah, you could probably bump up a little bit.
And then another one I'd like to bump up here is Rashad Jennings at Tennessee.
You're doing a lot of bumps this week.
I do. Everybody goes up. Everybody should be ranked higher and be given extra candy. Jennings, 91 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, that was against Jacksonville.
Well, yeah, and now he's at Tennessee, which is basically the same thing.
Eli's going to be too busy throwing amazing catches to Odell Beckham, and then they're going to find a way to lose the game.
I hope so. That'd be fun.
Oh, my God.
That'd be fun to watch.
Great.
18, 19, 20 are Alfred Morris versus the Rams, Ryan Matthews versus New England, and Frank Gore at Oakland, which I like. I like Gore at Oakland as play. If I were a Frank Gore owner, I would be extremely concerned at the way Carlos Hyde is starting to eat into quality time and the backfield there.
And if the 49ers season continues to go the way it has, which is downward, and you're Jim Harbaugh, and you're going to... Wait, real quick. And you're going to... Well, I was going to say, let me finish that thought, because this is what I do. And you're going to Butch and Sundance your way out of town. Do you just not play Hyde for the hell of it? Because what do you get to lose?
I don't know. Or do you... I have no idea whether he sits Hyde because he wants to give an FU to the Niners, or if he starts Hyde as a way to shake things up and try to get them winning. I mean, obviously he wants to win. Of course he does. But, yeah, I think, I don't know. I don't know if as a Carlos Hyde owner, which I've held on to him the entire season in a couple leagues and have gotten, almost nothing out of it.
You really only should be holding him at this point. I hate to say it, but you really should only be holding Carlos Hyde.
In keeper leagues.
In keeper leagues. And I dumped him, and I wish I had held on to him. But it was one of those weeks where it's like, well, I need a kicker, and I needed a kicker.
Yeah.
Here's the question I wanted to ask with the last few seconds before we move on to wide receivers. It's this. I know the team that people probably take the most joy in watching lose, the most schadenfreude is probably partaken of watching the Patriots lose by and large on a national scale.
Sure.
Because there's still a lot of Patriots haters out there. I don't know if you heard, but people accused them of cheating years ago.
I seem to remember that, yes.
Okay. Now, what team do you particularly, because there seem to be two, you seem to relish two teams' failures on a regular basis. The Washington football people and the 49ers of San Francisco.
There's those are probably Washington because that's such a disgusting, gross organization that's poisoned from Dan Snyder all the way through the. And I just and if you've ever been around Washington fans, the way that they are so annoyingly devoted to that team. They're so...
It's been our name for a long time, man. We deserve this.
It's not even just the name, but like the way that they're fans. I don't know. There's something about them that just like I love the way that everything goes wrong for them. And
Daniel Snyder is human herbicide.
Yeah, and so I enjoy the failures, but I mean I also I've got a lifelong enmity towards the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got that Super Bowl 40 loss that still stings.
Right,
it's never gone away. And I don't like Steelers fans. So, and here's the thing: I know Seahawks fans are annoying too. Pats fans are among the most annoying people in the world, and yet you're a perfectly likable person. No, we can pick and choose who we like personally, but while still hating entire fan bases.
I could, you know what? Baltimore.
Any
team that could ever potentially embrace alleged murder suit O'Reilly.
Your Ray Lewis, your Ray Rice's.
Bleach on my wife.
Yeah.
And then Ray Rice.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's it. I'm good with him.
Yeah. I'm cool with that too. Let's round out the running back discussion. Andre Ellington injured. Let's say you're me and you need a running back to fill in spots start for Andre Ellington. Who do you turn to this week?
Well, the Grice guy. He got most of the carries last week.
Grice sounds like imitation food that like Mulk. Not with more vitamin Q. Grice is. It sounds like it's mostly rice, but also some maggots.
Yeah. Oh, God, gross. Yeah, gross rice is Grice.
Yeah.
Not touching him with a 10-foot wiener. And also Stephen Taylor.
No.
It's too bad that somebody was thinking of naming their kid Stefan, and they're like, oh, also I have a stepson. Stephen. He's Stephen, my stepson. He's my stepson. Oh, white wine, you grand ally of inappropriateness. So no, I'm not touching anyone in the Arizona backfield. I'll tell you who I may grab, and it's not going to be somebody in the Patriots backfield because I should wear a T-shirt that says in the last week, Bill Belichick hates your fantasy team. Because he does.
Jonas Gray, 1 carry since his 200-yard game.
LeGarrette Blount, almost 6 yards of carry in Green Bay, but why feed him the rock?
Brandon Bolden gets the touchdown last week.
Bolden gets the touchdown, so everyone pick up James White this week because apparently he's the other running back there. You know who I might grab? Rando Grabo of the week.
Which is my nickname on the subway.
That's so funny. That's the magician name I used to perform under. Presto. Starks.
Oh, James Starks, yeah. You like that fourth quarter garbage time?
I like garbage time. Get him in space against that clunky defense of the Falcones.
I like that, plus a little bit of PPR value if you happen to be in one of those leagues. All right,
Take a chance.
like it.
Roll those dice.
Okay, let's move on. Wide receivers. And number 1 is once again topped by a Green Bay Packer, Jordy Nelson, at home against the Falcons.
The reason why I am enjoying...
Here's a little fun fact for you. Going into last week's game, 6 of Jordy Nelson's 9 touchdowns on the year were at home, and all 6 of those were for 25 yards or longer. I was conning you, Nick.
That was a stacked deck, wasn't it?
It was, sir.
Well, but I got to say, though, those were a lot of those ones, we've talked about them before, where it was like, okay, this is the field. Here's everyone else. Here's Jordy Nelson running himself into the end zone.
Yeah.
Last week it was nice move on Revis, and the safety bit the wrong way. That was. I hate to say it. If that's on anyone, that's on McCourty. It's not on Revis.
People are saying Darrell Revis got burnt. Well, no, he gave up a slant. Devin McCourty took a terrible angle and allowed him to get to the pylon.
100%, and a great read by Rodgers. He's looking okay. So Jordy's going to check off on the post route, on the fly or the go route. He's going to go on the slant. He's got a single high safety. If he gets that safety to bite. That's why they called it such a great chess match, because little things like that ended up making a huge difference at the end of the game.
Great game to watch. Sorry about the result for you.
But we enjoyed ourselves.
Yes, sir. Number 2, Demaryius Thomas versus Arizona. And again, tough matchup against...
Buffalo, excuse me. That's a typo there.
Yep,
sorry about that.
Buffalo. Still a tough matchup against Buffalo. I think that, we're actually, if I can skip down the rankings here, you've got Emmanuel Sanders as the number 16 wide receiver. And I think I like Sanders better this game.
Yeah.
Sanders has 700-yard games this year. He's 4th in the NFL in receiving yards. He's got more yardage than T.Y. Hilton, than Jeremy Maclin, than Jordy Nelson even. Like Emmanuel Sanders, especially with Leotis McKelvin, the second cornerback out for the Bills, I think he's going to see some targets.
Now he did only have one big 6-point house party the night that he scored 3 touchdowns. I believe that was a Sunday against the 49ers.
Yeah,
so you must have rather enjoyed that.
I did. I actually ended up losing that week because I was up against somebody else who had like a gigantic week. But yes.
But we were talking before the show about how, with Buffalo losing Leotis McKelvin for the season, you're going to have to put Stephen Gilmore on Demaryius Thomas. So that puts Corey Brown, I think, a converted safety to cornerback on Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
With the ankle breaking, the Tim Hardaway as a wide receiver moves he's been putting on this year, Sanders could. That is my, shall we say, who was the running back I put down? That is my Justin Forsett of wide receiver undervaluations this week.
All right, but again, Demaryius Thomas, never a bad play. Always play Demaryius Thomas. Moving down, Des Bryant versus the Bears. Yeah, sure, absolutely. All day.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Alshon Jeffrey and Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown just leads the NFL in receptions, yards, and touchdowns for a wide receiver. Yeah, I guess.
So no big
I
deal.
guess I'll play Antonio Brown this week.
Yeah.
Calvin Johnson, all the way down number 6. Welcome back, Calvin Johnson. Thanks for showing up on Thanksgiving.
Great to see you again.
Yeah.
Making catches like only he makes. We're not talking about the Randy Moss, the famous Randy go and get it pass. That one was like a 40-yarder he made where he leaped up in the air, contorted his body, and caught it over his helmet and then fell back in the end zone while being bracket covered.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's what I want to see as someone who used his first-round pick on Calvin Johnson. That's what I deserve, darn it.
It is.
8, Randall Cobb, also with 10 touchdowns like his wide receiver mate, Jordy Nelson. And again, that saucy matchup. And actually, Des Trufant, whether he plays or not, I think he's probably going to play, but he's going to get Jordy Nelson, and like he's been playing pretty well. He's been playing like a first-round draft pick in his second year, and that makes a juicy matchup for Randall Cobb.
And the Packers are most dangerous in the first half.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's when these wide receivers are all going to be getting their points.
Yeah. And look at this. Would we have ever pictured this as the season started? A.J. Green and Brandon Marshall all the way down at number 9 and 10?
Never.
Unthinkable, right?
Preposterous. Inconceivable.
And yet, and here's the thing. Brandon Marshall's been getting, 10 targets a game. Still a good play. Absolutely.
Sure. And against Dallas, I'll completely sign up for that. I mean, the Bears season is toast, but.
Yeah. Let's go into the second half of the top 20 here. DeAndre Hopkins, what a game he had. I have him in 2 leagues. Oh, that was delicious.
Mayor of Breakout City.
9 catches on 9 targets, Scott. All 9 of his targets, 238 and 2 touchdowns. That was tasty.
That's why he was Mount Rushmore material on The Sporting Gentleman, which can be seen every Monday here on SBNation.com.
That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Least I can do.
It's a solid plug.
I will gladly plug you anytime.
Moving down to another delightful surprise. Number 12, Keenan Allen. Welcome back, sir.
Welcome back, right?
11 for 121 and 2 touchdowns in Baltimore. However, he has got his next 3 weeks. As you're like, thank God Keenan Allen is back. I'm going to be good for the playoffs. Slow your roll there, Cowboy, because he's got the Pats and Darrelle Revis, the Broncos probably with a healthy Aqib Talib by then, and then the Niners, weeks 14, 15, and 16.
That's a wicked trio.
That is a tough. If he gets it done, fantastic. Right now, I think he's kind of a wide receiver 2 flex play. I would still send him out there this week because he's been getting the targets. He's been getting, even before he started coming out with these big results the last 2 weeks, he was getting like 11 targets a game.
Oh, he was always getting his targets. It was just a matter of him being able to haul them in.
Yeah, so I'm pro Keenan Allen, but be careful with it. Mike Evans at Detroit, tough matchup.
13 and 14 here this week. We've got Mike Evans at Detroit and Kelvin Benjamin at New Orleans. Now, we both know that the New Orleans secondary is just that week-old Mexican. But just garbage completely, the bachelor's refrigerator. Here's the thing, though. I think 13 and 14, Odell Beckham Jr. is down to 15.
How did that happen?
Well, I typed it. so my brain sent electrical pulses to my fingers, and they touched this keyboard. Here's the thing. I think with Mike Evans and Kelvin Benjamin, they were used a lot recently. They've been thrown at a number. Like Kelvin Benjamin's targets are just through the roof, over double-digit targets every game. That's a lot for a guy that came out real early and is probably hitting his rookie wall. And I think he's hit it. Whereas Mike Evans might be like, oh, that's what the rookie wall smells like.
Because he had a slow start.
Right, but he missed a game or two for for a groin injury, so we get a little less to tread on the tires. Whereas Odell Beckham Jr. is in midseason form for a rookie right now.
Yeah.
That's why he's playing well.
So I would let's bump up Odell Beckham ahead of those two.
And temper your expectations for Evans and Benjamin.
With a juicy matchup in Tennessee, he became a wide receiver 1 so quick, just like that.
Just like that?
Like that's it.
That's it.
Emmanuel Sanders, we already talked about. Brandon LaFell versus San Diego. He has quietly become very, very reliable.
Yeah.
In the Patriots offense, basically the only things you can count on are Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski on a week-to-week basis.
And not knowing who's going to carry the ball.
Yeah. And uncertainty is the only certainty. But Brandon LaFell has emerged as like a reliable wide receiver 2 play. I've been trotting him out for a couple weeks now. Been surprised by the consistency. Really nice.
If it's not 9 or 10 catches for 100 yards plus, it's going to be 4 or 5, and there's usually a touchdown in the mix.
2 touchdowns last week. Only 38 yards, but 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah, I'll take it every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Rounding out the top 20, Kenny Stills, a breakout game for last week. Josh Gordon underperformed last week, but 12 targets. You got to like that. And I also, if the possibility of Johnny Manziel starting, he's going to look good too. And then T.Y. Hilton, number 20 down at Cleveland, also had a good game.
He did, and I would gladly start him as well. Josh Gordon was disappointing. I'm anxious to see. One of the things I want to see about Johnny Football, if he does play this week, is that Ken Manziel, when he's given, this is going to be his Mike Evans. And he always had a big target to throw to who used to make him look all kinds of good on some of his more erratic passes. Plenty of arm strength on Manziel.
Yeah.
Plenty of arm strength.
You see the pass that he zipped to the tight end in between 2 defenders? Could have been intercepted, but they were used to the Brian Hoyer softballs all game long, and then he threw a bullet in there.
Kind of like Hoyer's passes are kind of like those airplanes that you see where it's just like you got chickens hanging out of the back of them, and they're kind of like
he's
one
like
propeller.
His passes are like the single props landing in South America, like the dirt road as the chickens scurry away.
That's what I'm saying. You probably saw one of his passes in *Romancing the Stone*. If none of you guys have seen it, rent it. Who rents? Rent it. Because it's 2003, Nick. Whoopee.
Also, if you're renting *Romancing the Stone* in 2003, you're still like 18 years behind.
Yeah, I know. My bad. Oh, man, the Doobie Brothers broke up. Yeah.
Let's say, I will point out, as we were talking about rookie wide receivers, and we got to move on, Sammy Watkins is not in this top 20, and there's a reason for that. Averaging only 26 yards per game in the last month. The groin injury is just taking him down. And a tough matchup in Denver. And then you throw in the rookie wall.
Right.
And Sammy Watkins has just kind of faded this season.
It's nagging on him. And every week I always say the same thing. Like, God, the guy is just all sorts of banged up, too. He's got a thigh. I think there may or may not be a groin factor in there. But Edelman, every week, is still somehow pulling off 9 catches and 100 yards.
Yep.
And if you're comfortable with, meeting your projections, if you're getting 9.5 or 10 points is what you think is going to be good enough to win that game, by all means.
By all means, sir. Let's move on to tight ends.
Ooh!
A little bit more white wine for me as we talk about tight ends.
If we're going to talk tight ends.
Number 1 is someone who posted 0 points on 0 targets last week, Jimmy Graham.
What was that? I mean,
5 touchdowns from Drew Brees and none of them to Jimmy Graham.
5 different receivers. He couldn't find his biggest and best?
Well, they did a good job of covering him. Just nobody else, apparently.
Yeah.
And then number 2, Rob Gronkowski. Now, the Chargers are actually 3rd stingiest in the league against fantasy tight ends. The most they've allowed in fantasy points-wise, 65 yards and a touchdown to Charles Clay. Now, you'll take 65 yards and a touchdown from Gronk, and in fact, he's much better than Charles Clay. So Gronk is still a confident, solid play, but it might be he's not going to give you the 178 and 2 touchdowns that you might be hoping for.
No. You're not going to get that. This isn't going to be the week Gronk single-handedly wins the game for you or beasts out somebody else at the tight end position so much that it makes up for lackluster performances at your wide receiver 2 or your RB2 or what have you. Here's the thing. In addition to that, coming off of a tough game in Green Bay where they played him physically, Clinton Dix actually said the sorest he's ever been following a football game was having to cover Gronk because of the intense nature with which Gronk. He said he felt like he was pushed from like a van. Said it was just like,
that sounds about right, actually.
Yeah, but that's just Gronk hitting you off the line too. I mean, I don't want to go all Curse of the Bambino and start making up mystical properties that don't exist or anything, or looking for jinxes where they aren't to be found. But The Bieber thing is just—it's
Curse of
killing
the
me.
Bieberino.
Really, like I would have much rather he been on 52 consecutive Sports Illustrated covers.
It's true.
I would have much rather that found out that he had a three-way with Kim Kardashian and Kanye West. I would have.
Would watch.
It's just so wrong. Why?
Number 3, Julius Thomas. He has missed his last 2 games and still leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What's crazy is he needs to play because my frickin' fantasy teams are dying without him.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I think he's good to go this week, though.
All right.
I think we can give him the full confidence start this week. It's not the Buffalo Bills do give up some yardage to tight ends.
4 and 5. Let's talk about the most intriguing pair of tight ends this week.
They wouldn't normally be up this high, especially together. Exactly.
Martellus Bennett versus Dallas is number 4. Jason Witten, number 5. Bears are the worst team in the NFL against fantasy tight ends. Cowboys are almost as bad. They're 2 of the 4 worst teams in the NFL. There's like a bunch. The other 2 are the Colts and the Jets. But they're just terrible at covering tight ends. So I like Marty B and Jason Witten both this week.
Question: if you are not one of the owners of, let's say, up till 10, because we've got Witten, Gates, Olsen, Fleener, monster game last week. Rudolph caught a touchdown. That was nice.
Yep. And Travis Kelce.
Okay, we're going to draw the line right there. Okay. If you don't own one of those 10, do you take a crazy town? Do you go to crazy town and say, I'm in the mood? And do you grab Escobar, thinking that maybe he'll just catch one of those random 30-yard Tony Romos?
No.
Okay.
Here's why. Here's what I'm going to go for. If he plays, I'm going to pick up Jordan Cameron. Hasn't played in 6 weeks. The poor guy's brain has turned into mush from concussions, and that's awful, and I feel bad. However, the Colts are second worst against fantasy tight ends. You throw in Johnny Manziel as a spark, a guy who loves himself, a big target, like Mike Evans in college, like probably Josh Gordon this game. You throw in a great matchup, I might give Jordan Cameron a try.
Oh, I believe land. There we go. Somebody else who I did not include because
another Jordan.
The jury is out due to the injury. Someone else who's had an unfortunate history of concussions, which is a really depressing movie. Don't rent it. Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Niles Paul experiment. Still, I mean, that Fusion Jazz trio broke up a while ago, and it's a shame. It was fun while it lasted.
Is it really, though?
But Jordan Reed, last week getting back in the game, overcoming the, shall we say, host of injuries that he's dealing with this season. Apple of Colt McCoy's eye.
Yeah.
12 targets, 10 receptions.
Yeah, big game.
Big game. I would gladly start him all the way. If he's playing again, we're not sure if he's dinged up all over again. Yeah. But if you've got him, give him a shot.
Let's tip our hats to the final 5 in the top 15. Owen Daniels at Miami, tough matchup. Number 12, Heath Miller at Cincinnati. You never know, especially with like a longtime Steeler like Miller. He steps it up for those conference interdivision games.
And the Steelers fans will get on the road. He'll catch a pass. You'll hear Heath.
Yeah. And then Larry Donnell rounds out the top 15. Are we good on tight ends? We got anything else to say?
The last thing I will say is I've put him in here the last 2 weeks, and I've seen Stafford look his way. There is an Eric Ebron. I mean, it sounds like a great name for like a late 80s hip-hop band.
He's right on the edge. He's
right
on the cusp.
He's on the cusp. There's a 60-yard Gronk-like touchdown in him, and then everyone's going to be like, yes, I knew I grabbed him for a reason.
Yeah.
I can start him in week 15 in the playoffs.
Yeah. It's going to happen in the next 3 weeks. I don't know when, but like I just feel like he's starting to get the hang of things. As a rookie tight end, it just takes a long time to adjust to the NFL game. And even when you're a first-round pick, it just takes some time to adjust. So yeah. I like him as a speculative pickup. Let's move on to defense.
Bye, tight ends.
Bye. Defenses, number 1. Your number 1 play is the Lions versus Tampa Bay. Okay.
Yeah, Josh McCown still quarterbacks Tampa.
A check, yeah.
They're home.
They still can't run the ball against a team that's fantastic at stopping it. Okay.
Go on.
I'll tell you what, though. I like number 2 better. The Houston Texans at Jacksonville. Bortles, Mr. Blake Bortles, actually did not have a turnover last week, but that's really more the effect of the Giants' defense than it is a feather in his cap. I think the J.J. Watt effect. If only his receiving touchdowns counted for the Texans' defense. Oh, that'd be great.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
5 touchdowns on the season.
That's fantastic.
He has 3 more receiving touchdowns than all the wide receivers in Kansas City. It's unreal. It's a mind-blowing fact. But he has legitimately entered the MVP conversation. And this may be one of those games where it's
I think
just like...
if the Texans manage to bowl their way into the AFC playoff picture, if they can win out and finish 10-6, or even sneak into the playoffs at 9-7, which seems a little bit unlikely, I think if they make the playoffs, he will win MVP.
Wouldn't that be insane?
I think it'd be great.
It would be.
He has been a joy to watch. He makes, I watch the Texans and I'm like, cool, I get to watch J.J. Watt. I'm watching line play intently for the first time as an NFL viewer. I mean, I always try, I should be watching the line a little bit more. I do that, but I'm actually focused on that first.
I don't think it's crazy to say that he's probably the most impactful and exciting and dangerous defensive player to watch since Lawrence Taylor.
I cannot disagree.
You could, but you chose not to.
Yeah.
That's what free will is all about. And also, J.J. Watt last weekend, to top it all off, sent pizzas to every firehouse and police station in Houston with a handwritten note to each one of them saying, "Thank you for your service." And he's got to be a good dude on top of it.
And he's all of his commercials, he's the best actor. He's
good.
Really funny stuff.
Is that chamomile? You want to take a nap?
And then beyond that, he's self-aware. He's he tweets about the commercial where he's at the dance with the mom. At the dance, and he's like, well, if only, he's this commercial never comes on. He's self-deprecating about it. I interviewed him once and just asked him only questions about burritos, the burrito scene in Houston. He was totally game. One of the people, I don't get on the jocks of NFL players too often. Great dude. Just a great dude.
Here's the only problem with if you lived in a house with him and you're just it was you and four bros, and they're it's tonight on Dude House, Matt, JJ, and the gang. Have to try and figure out who drank those 2 cubes of Natty Light again. JJ, because he must consume so many calories. He's a beast.
Yeah, he's a gigantic human being. Anyway, that ends the J.J. Watt We Love You hour. Let's move on. Kansas City at Arizona. The KC, Justin Houston, Tom Ali going after Drew Stanton. Sure.
Drew Stanton, the Christmas. It truly is Christmas, isn't it, Drew Stanton? You're giving it away everywhere.
And then you got, I guess Larry Fitzgerald is going to be back this week.
But they said last week he was highly likely, and then he sat.
And then you've got Andre Ellington out. You've got a team that can't run the ball, a team with a bad quarterback, going up a team with a really good pass rush and a pretty solid defense from top to bottom. The Cardinals might be kind of like the Jaguars/Jets-esque in terms of matchup plays for defenses.
At this point now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, their matchups coming up are the Niners or Seahawks, who are already owned in your league. But whatever, let's move on. Arizona versus KC on the other side of the ball, also a good play. It's not I don't know, it kind of depends on how much Jamal Charles does.
Right. But that's, you can probably see, he may get limited still. He is Jamal Charles, but...
I don't like playing defenses that are up against the Chiefs just because Alex Smith doesn't really turn the ball over. He doesn't really get sacked a lot. Yeah. And so the Chiefs are just kind of like a team that they're not a juicy team to play against if you got a defense play against them.
They really are like, hey, would you like anything else in your salad? Yeah, can I have some of that chopped boiled chicken? All right.
Number 5 is Cincy versus Pittsburgh. Sure. 6, Minnesota. This is a great one. The Minnesota versus the Jets. They're at home, cold weather. The Jets looked capable running the ball against the Dolphins. However, the Vikes just kept coming off that blocking 2 punts for touchdowns.
It was Carolina. But their defense actually has played pretty well the last several weeks. They limited Green Bay. Granted, the game was in Minnesota, but they limited Green Bay to fewer points than the Patriots gave up.
That's true.
Pretty impressive.
Denver versus Buffalo. Yeah, that's the Kyle Orton effect right there. Seattle at Philly is a dangerous play. I think Seattle at Philly is like a high upside play. It just depends on if they can get Mark Sanchez to start questioning his abilities.
I'm in on that high upside.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier in the game, earlier in the show, I really think they're going to load the box. They're going to say, go ahead and try and run it. Oops, you can't. All right, Sanchez, here we are. And who knows Mark Sanchez better than Peter Carroll?
Pete Carroll. And also, you've got Sherman, who played against him at Stanford. I guess. Do their years line up? Yeah, their years line up a little bit.
They probably didn't have a lot of respect for him back then either. Probably thinks he's very 3, 2, 1, mediocre.
Number 9, San Francisco at Oakland, a Raiders team that just scored 0 points and gave up 52 and a pick 6 to the Rams.
Did Derek Carr thank his Lord and Savior for that effort? the same way he did for the big win against Kansas City?
Don't go there.
Just asking.
10 is Green Bay versus Atlanta. Maybe. I think the Falcons can still put some points on the board. St. Louis is a team that I really like this week, and that's partly because they're playing a Washington team that is garbage. But they've had 10-plus points. By 10-plus is more like 13-plus points the last 2 weeks, and 3 of the last 5. And they even notched 7 points against the Broncos, depending on your scoring system. The St. Louis, everyone before the season was like, the Rams D-line, I got to get the Rams defense, and they didn't do crap for 8 weeks. They're finally delivering on that promise that people drafted them for. The Rams defense.
Chris Long coming back is a big difference.
The Rams defense is a great play this week. Let's round out the top 15. You got Miami versus Baltimore. Yes. New England at San Diego. A tough one, but sure. New Orleans versus Carolina. You like this one a lot.
That is we're going to call that's the last call play. That is the 155. They're going to ring the bell and turn on the lights at 2. They already shut off the taps, but you don't feel like going home alone. Grab them, kiss them, and try and convince them to go take them home.
The Panthers effect. That's a offensive line that cannot protect Cam Newton at all, that can't get a run game really going very well. I like it. I also, we were talking beforehand, I like the Eagles D and special teams this week. Now that's
your sneaky D.
Here's the thing. They're probably already owned because they've scored so many points this weekend. But you might think oh, it's going to be the Seahawks are a good team. Maybe I don't play them. Send them forward. They give up sacks. You're going to be able to sack Russell Wilson. They're kind of iffy on special teams, and the Eagles have more special teams touchdowns than anybody else this year, or at least defense and special teams combined. And I just think the Seahawks have had an incredible run of luck with fumbles, recovering their own fumbles. And so I think that the Eagles are a high upside play this week. The Seahawks aren't going to score more than 20 points, maybe 24.
Right.
It's not like they're going to put up 38 and you're going to, negative 3 points. You're going to be able to get some sacks.
I had no idea that Russell Wilson had fumbled the ball 12 times this year, and they've been able to recover 8 of them.
Yeah.
That's something
I'm 80% sure on that.
Russell Wilson has such a golden boy glow about him.
Yeah.
Just because he's dangerous and everyone loves him.
Yeah.
That you forget, sometimes he makes bad plays.
Yeah.
And
sometimes.
he's really got to learn, if nobody should have to or want to call Tiki Barber, but at least, Tom Coughlin taught him how to carry the ball, and he never fumbled again after Tom Coughlin made him spend that whole offseason. He started doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
This whole loaf of bread thing down here.
Well, he's looking to pass the ball. Tiki Barber was not looking to pass.
Why? What position did he play? Well, last question. It's one of these sort of etymology semantics questions. Would they always say he was out there carrying the ball like a loaf of bread? When is the last time, A, the only thing that you had was a loaf of bread, and B, how did you carry it?
I feel like tucking it is a more natural way to carry a loaf of bread.
Because then if you carry it like this, with your paws, you're going to squish the bread. Now it's oh, good, I've got finger. And
for me, again, if I picked up
I don't care.
For me, it's a bag guy. That's what you pick up and carry by itself, right? And that goes over the shoulder. I'm an over the shoulder with the baguette guy. As I sip my white wine.
Hold on 1 second. Hey, control room, could you save the time code on that one for Matt to put on his next reel? I'm an over-the-shoulder baguette guy. Mark it, dude. That was a strike.
Thank you very much.
First world problems.
All right.
Does that technically count as a loaf of bread? We're done.
All right, let's get into questions. We got a little bit of time for questions.
All right.
Let's start things off with our friend, the Mighty Feckler, our favorite Star Trek aficionado. Any advice on what to do with Brandon Marshall would be appreciated. As of now, I got Marshall, Riding Pine, and DeAndre Hopkins in the wide receiver 2 spot. And I followed this up with hey, who's your wide receiver 1? And he said, Mohamed Sanu. And the obvious thing to me is to play Hopkins and Marshall. Marshall's getting 10-plus targets a game. Sanu, his last 4 weeks, 19 yards, 48 yards, 23 yards, 20 yards. 1 score in the game where he got 48 yards.
As A.J. Green has trended back upwards, Sanu has trended downward.
Correct. Brandon Marshall against a soft Cowboys D. Give Marshall and Hopkins a start there.
The problem with Sanu is not Sanu's talent level or even A.J. Green back on the field. It's that Andy Dalton is just not a quarterback that's able to go check down 1, check down 2, check down 3. He's got eyes for A.J. Green, and then it's just oh, here, you try and make a catch for me.
Also, a bummer for the Bengals defense is that Mohamed Sanu has stopped throwing the ball too. He's not getting those touchdown passes anymore.
Good point.
And the way Dalton's been playing, they should consider more snaps at quarterback for Mohamed Sanu.
God, that ginger biscuit. I'm with you. I would totally go Hopkins and Marshall this week.
Next one, John Briscoe asks, Deep League, John Brown, he's versus KC, Marquise Lee versus Houston, or Kenny Britt at Washington as a wide receiver 3. Oof.
One more time.
John Brown, Marquise Lee, or Kenny Britt.
I'm going to go Marquise Lee and Kenny Britt.
Only one of them.
Oh, only one?
Only one of them.
Oh, for a wide receiver 3.
I would give, I would
Washington does not have any good cornerbacks.
I would go Kenny Britt.
I might go Kenneth Britt as well.
I don't like that I'm going with Kenny Britt because he didn't, on a game in which Stedman Bailey went for 5 for 100, and Kenny Britt only had like 1 or 2 catches for like less than 20 yards.
Right, so Oprah's boyfriend is stealing catches from Kenny Britt.
Here's the thing. I want to go, my recency bias wants to go Marquise Lee. Hey, he had 70 yards and a touchdown last week.
Every time, there's something written into their contracts that says anytime a Jacksonville wide receiver scores, he's not allowed to score the next week.
Yeah, I want to go.
Just doesn't happen.
I think
just doesn't.
Even though it's been a while for John Brown, and I think he could come back, and not with Drew Stanton. Not with Drew Stanton. Go ahead. I'd say Kenny Britt.
And Kansas City too. Kansas City, it's a stingy D.
Yeah. Go with Kenny Britt against Washington defense there. Philip Carper asks, 1 point PPR, Edelman or Devontae Adams at flex, and Kelsey or Rivera at tight ends. I'm gonna make this easy. With 1 point PPR, you go with Edelman.
Done.
Devontae Adams, that was his breakout game, the 6 catches for 120 plus yards and a drop in the end zone, mind you. That was the result of them targeting specifically New England's weak third cornerback.
100% because you have 1 and 2 covered by 2 great cornerbacks.
Yeah, definitely go with Julian Edelman. Kelsey or Rivera, I fly Kelsey every week. Rivera is hit and miss.
Yeah.
And not an immensely talented tight end. There's just not a ton of talent on the Raiders to begin with.
No, and they're playing San Francisco. Even though it's in Oakland, they're playing San Francisco.
Go with Kelsey. At John Jesse 3, should I trust Stedman Bailey over Martavis Bryant, Sammy Watkins, and Torrey Smith this week? The answer to that is easy. It's no. I would go with either Martavis Bryant or Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith has been Torrid Smith recently.
He has. And yes, he's going to probably draw Brent Grimes, and he plays him really well. But Torrey Smith has been on fire. Baltimore does surprisingly play very well down in Miami. Somehow they end up with a game there every year. So I would be more inclined to start Torrey Smith. I wouldn't start Martavis. I don't like Martavis Bryant. Do you know he's only got, I know he's got 6 touchdowns. He hasn't done garbage recently. Marcus Wheaton has surpassed him. Last week he did drop a 13-yard touchdown, but who's to say he's going to get it again? And that was against New Orleans, not against Cincinnati. I'd give Torrey Smith the slight edge over Martavis Bryant. Sammy Watkins is out. He's for me right now. I don't know how injured he is. I don't like the fact that it's Kyle Orton throwing the ball. I don't like that Aqib Talib might be covering him. So yeah, I would bench Stedman Bailey, go with Smith or Martavis Bryant. At John_runs says Cutler or Tannehill for playoffs. He's got a week 14 bye, so he's not. Ooh, okay.
He says Flacco is also an option. Remember, guys, the Scottish guy didn't screw over Keanu. Maybe that's a reference to a previous show.
The Scottish guy didn't screw over.
You know what? Let's not focus on that. We've got
that's a
so
deep
first of
pull
all,
of
so
references.
Cutler, Tannehill, and Flacco for the playoffs. First of all, get rid of Flacco. No, you don't want to trust him at all. And it comes down to matchups. Week 15, Cutler has the Saints, and then 16, he's got the Lions. You don't want to play Cutler against the Lions.
But it's at home, though, and he started off really well against the Lions until he remembered he's Jay Cutler on Thanksgiving.
Here's the thing. And then Tannehill is got the
Week
Pats,
15, yep.
And then the Vikings. So I would go Week 15, play Cutler against the Saints with their shoddy secondary, and then Week 16, I'd go with Tannehill.
Okay. Gun to head / desert island poll. You can only carry one on the roster. I'm carrying Cutler.
Okay, me too.
If you got them both and you can hold on to them, then yeah, you go.
And you know why?
You go
Because
or.
Cutler has Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall.
Right, and not Jarvis Landry and Mike Wallace.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
Brian Hartline. He was on my roster earlier this year.
Remember him?
Remember those days.
Yeah.
All right. Sinner, there's lots of R's, says, this week decides if I make the playoffs or not. Oh, week 15 playoffs. Des Bryant, Julio Jones, Josh Gordon, ODB, Deshaun Jackson. Well, no wonder you start the playoffs in week 15. There's only 8 teams in this league.
Right.
Look
and
at these.
You're stacked at receiver, buddy.
Pick 3. Who do I start? Pick any 3. I'm not even. Don't start Deshaun Jackson. He's injured.
Right.
There you go.
Start the first 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. He had Dez, ODB, and
Julio Jones.
Good. Done.
And Josh Gordon.
I would bench Josh Gordon and I would bench Deshaun Jackson among those because I want to see what.
I can't believe we even dignified that with a response. Joe Capuccio, there's no R, I'm sorry. Joe Capuccio says...
Hey, Capuch. How you doing, Pooch?
Hey, Pooch.
Poochie. Hey, Joey Capuch. He's coming over here. He's got the mats, Joey Capuch.
Oh, I want to hang out with this guy so bad now.
Oh, you know that he watches games in the garage. Hey, we're going to go over Joey, we're going to go to Pooch's garage. Gonna bring the mats. Someone else, he's got the steaks. I got the bread. Who got the beers, Capuch?
Is Ryan Fitzpatrick the man who will win me my playoffs?
I'm wearing Zubas. I drove my Camaro.
Pooch, I gotta say, when I first saw this question, I was like, ha ha ha, Ryan Fitzpatrick, that's hilarious. And then I looked at the Texans' schedule. At Jacksonville, at Indianapolis, and then Baltimore. And again, we talked about Baltimore's tough front 7, but thin in the secondary, and you can throw against them.
And we talked also about the fact that Houston might try and be that, they could be the sneaky, you don't know, Steelers.
Here's the
Baltimore could go down. They could be the sneaky 10-6 wild card.
If you're looking at I've got Cam Newton, or he has totally tubed it, or Ryan Tannehill. I'm not sure if this is I would take Ryan Fitzpatrick as kind of like a borderline guy, the matchup start. Sure.
And I think he's going to be very available.
Yeah. Well, he's about to be less available because people are going to jump on that 6 TD performance. But
so hopefully people catch up to this on Tuesday night and make sure they grab him by Wednesday.
Yeah. Grant Spenceley says... Spenceley, good to see you, old boy.
Yeah.
Antonio Gates or Greg Olsen this week. Now, consider this. The Pats are the 8th most tight end friendly team in the NFL, according to fantasy terms. And the Saints are 31st. The Saints are stingy against tight ends.
Which is a surprise.
It is a surprise.
One quarterback going this way, one quarterback going this way.
I don't know how much of that has to do with playing in the NFC South and garbage tight ends everywhere.
Right. But Philip Rivers had a good game last week. He's gonna they're 8-4. They're gonna be geeked up. This is a huge game.
I'm gonna go with Gates.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Gates.
I hate to pick against my own team, but I would start Gates anytime.
All right, we're almost out of time. Brian Stratman. I don't know if there's 2 A's, so I don't know if it's Straitman or Stratman. But
was your boy able to get into Stratman for high school?
He needs 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and a flex from. Oh, come on! Don't ask us the entire.
You get one question.
Okay, I'm just gonna. No, Brian, we'll take care of you on Twitter. I'll find you my mentions. That's a long-ass question.
That's an awful.
Last question here. At Irish Cream OG. That's his Twitter handle.
If you gave me 1,000,000 stabs at a Twitter handle, I would never have gone for Irish Cream OG. Easily my favorite handle so far.
Well, no, the Bailey's, yo. All right, Irish Cream OG. I have Ellington, Kendall Wright, and Floyd for my flex. Do I just leave it empty and draw a frowny face? No. Here's the thing. Kendall Wright. Here, Justin Hunter is injured. Lacerated his spleen.
Ew.
Ew.
That's a Jason Witten injury.
Yeah, no, you don't want that. But with Kendall Wright, and against a terrible Giants team, he's at home. I like Kendall Wright, and also and Floyd for my flex, whether it's Malcolm or Michael.
Right. He didn't specify, even if he wrote M. Floyd.
Yeah, no, I probably wouldn't want that.
Let's just imagine.
Go with Kendall Wright. Go with Kendall Wright. Yeah, you're big.
Okay, right.
Also, I like the idea of being able to have like emoticons for your.
Oh, I think that would be great.
Like have a little flames for a guy that does well and a frowny face with tears.
As opposed to like the colored notes on Yahoo?
Like that's my last 2 weeks with Julius Thomas. It's like locked into tight end after the 1 o'clock games have kicked. And I get like a frowny face for Julius Thomas.
And then if you have Eli Manning, it's just like, it's 2 arms, you know, like how the little emojis on the iPhone are just like the fist bump and this.
Yeah.
That's just like a guy doing this. Sorry.
All right, that's our war room for this week. Folks, week 14, first week of the fantasy playoffs for most of you. Good luck out there. Set your lineups and just have fun.
Enjoy it. Come on, you made the playoffs. That's exactly what you were in this for.
That's
the bragging rights during the season and who's playing who and whatnot. That's all fun. That's all fun and dandies, I like to say. But this is when it counts.
I consider. Here's the thing. Once you make it to the playoffs, it's a series of coin flips. Like yes, you can have a better team than other guys. Any given week, you might lose to the worst team in the league. So it's winning a championship in fantasy there's a lot of luck involved. But making the playoffs is the true symbol of like you having skill as a fantasy player.
Right. You did it's a 3-week sample size now that you're going to take it up against because it's a clean slate.
But for the first 13 weeks, that's the true indicator of whether you're good at this. And you know what? If you didn't make the playoffs and you've made it this far, thanks for watching because you're our favorite viewer. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And for the guys that did, at least almost half the people out there didn't. So just enjoy that. Hang them high, let them fly. And if you got questions, that's what we're here for.
We'll see you next week.